Namaste. Welcome back, beautiful souls. This is an ongoing discussion of three Arthurian tarot decks and an exploration of how the archetypes of the tarot are expressed through the Arthurian legends. And there is so much food for thought here, and we dive into this today looking at Guinevere as the Empress in all three decks. This is Legend, the Arthurian Tarot, and here you can see Guinevere and Arthur in our main feature deck. This is Claire Duval's Guinevere, and this is the one from the Matthews deck. And I will be reading to you from a little bit from each of them. I also had an interesting observation here in that the women in this deck appear to be quite ethereal, pale, weak, whereas the men seem to be drawn in more focus. And I'm going to continue to look at that as we go through, but I just find that really interesting. Even Merlin, who is a little further in the distance in this photo, is a lot clearer than either Guinevere or Nimue. So, from Legend, the Arthurian Tarot. The throne looms over Guinevere, representing the tremendous responsibility of the High Queen. Despite the youth of Arthur's bride, she possesses a regal air and is capable of rising to the occasion. With flowers in her hair and a dress of green, she is the May Queen, a figure of renewal and fertility. The apple blossoms are symbolic of the goddess and represent the process of regeneration. The brown and green colors of the throne and dress correspond to earth and vegetation respectively, bringing to mind the nurturing image of Mother Nature. As May Queen, Guinevere is responsible for the welfare of both her people and the land, a position which demands maturity, wisdom, and if necessary, self-sacrifice. The purple cloak denotes royalty, leadership, and privileged class. The eagle represents the strength that comes of enlightenment. She has the ability to rise above a situation and take definitive action. The harp at her side symbolizes her attraction to things of beauty. She is an appreciative and generous patron of the arts. In contrast to the priestess who sits outside, Guinevere sits inside a great hall. She reigns in the world of people, business, and politics. The Empress is co-ruler, the equal feminine counterpart to the Emperor, and you can see the Emperor card here. So this is the Priestess, the Empress, and the Emperor from Legend, the Arthurian Tarot. This is from Anna Marie Ferguson's book, and I will also read you a passage that expands on this very clearly from the Matthews Guidebook. Guinevere was the daughter of Leodegan, a valuable and trusted friend to Arthur in the early days of his reign. It was during a visit to Leodegan that Arthur first laid eyes upon the young woman. This slender beauty was known as Gwenhwyfar to the Welsh, meaning white phantom, and indeed she had a complexion of cream and the grace of a swan. Arthur had made his choice, though Merlin disapproved and warned that Guinevere would bring him much sorrow. Interesting comment about the grace of a swan and the harp that we see in this photo here. It reminds me of the archetype of Saraswati, the elegant and wise and noble archetype of the divine feminine. In some versions of the Arthurian saga, Guinevere is seen as a tragic figure. In others, she is blamed for the failure of Arthur's vision. Her affair with Lancelot was said to have caused a division among the knights of the Round Table, and since she was the wife of the High King, Guinevere's relationship with Arthur's best friend was considered not only adultery, but also an act of high treason, punishable by death. Although Arthur tried to overlook this indiscretion, the people and their new ways demanded justice. Lancelot would have to oppose the king and break the fellowship to save his love. The rather harsh treatment of Guinevere may be the result of interpretations by Christian chroniclers of medieval society. In reality, Guinevere's taking of lovers would not have been considered such a dire sin. The land was in a state of religious transition, a time when Celtic pre-Christian and Christian values overlapped. The old ways gave the queen complete equality with all the same rights and powers as the king. The Celtic queen was involved in all aspects of rule, including war. What the warrior queens may have lacked in brawn, they often made up in skill and strategic planning. Meb of Ireland provides a fine example of this, as does the famous Boudica, or Boadicea of Britain, to whom a monument stands on the Thames embankment. These Celtic queens were within their rights to take lovers, as did their counterparts, the kings. We see this practice with Morgause, among others, and in the attitudes of the Lady of the Lake who tells Guinevere that there is nothing wrong with her love for Lancelot. In some versions of the story, the affair with Lancelot is mentioned only in passing, if at all. Apart from differing depictions of her infidelity, the portrayal of Guinevere also varies radically from that of a cold queen who treated the knights with contempt to that of a generous, much-loved queen who nurtured the fellowship. Contradictions also arise as to the fertility of the queen. While most present Guinevere as barren, the Welsh tradition insists that she did give birth to Arthur's sons. The health and fertility of the queen were important considerations, as it was believed they were directly linked with the state of the land itself. The custom of maying embodied this sentiment. Each year, Guinevere would ride out on May Day to welcome the season. Knowing this, the love-struck Melwis, ruler of the summer land, planned to abduct the queen as she roamed the woods. Melwis lay in wait and watched as the queen and her party of green adorned themselves with flowers, herbs, and mosses, and danced in the early sunshine. Seeing his opportunity, Melwis rose up, snatched Guinevere, and was gone. Word reached Arthur, or in some accounts Lancelot, that the queen had been abducted and was being held by Melwis. The abductor's home was Glastonbury Tor in Somerset, a favourite haunt of the fairy. The hill was surrounded by an adventurous marsh, which made rescue difficult. Nevertheless, Arthur led his troops on from Cornwall and Devon, ready to risk an all-out war for his queen. The monk Gildas and a local abbot, however, were not. They were able to intercede and negotiate the return of Guinevere, thus preserving the peace. Let's carry on. So this is from the Matthews Guidebook. Guinevere is often presented as the faithless wife of Arthur, whose guilty love of Lancelot caused the downfall of the Round Table. Such a picture is not consistent with the early figure of Guinevere, who, as Gwenhwyfar, is described as one of the three gentle gold-torqued ladies of Britain, whose integrity upholds the honor of Arthur's court, and whose beauty reflects the fertile face of the land. The accusations of infidelity leveled against Guinevere are without foundation in the early traditions, which speaks of her abduction by a series of men, so not just the abduction that was shared in the Other Decks guidebook, but also another abduction by Mordred. It is not until Chrétien de Troyes' Le Chevalier de la Charette in the late 12th century that we find Lancelot in the role of rescuer. though not yet as the active lover of Guinevere. Putting the evidence together, we find that Guinevere aligns to an archetype identified as the flower bride, the otherworldly woman, often a representative of the goddess of sovereignty, who becomes the consort of a king. Her role is to manifest in her own person the harmony between king and land. But if she is not matched on every level by a reciprocal love from her consort, then she looks for a champion to challenge the king and remind him of his duties towards his queen and the land which she represents. She is indeed championed by many knights, including the Grail winner Percival and Geraint. They both avenge Guinevere in separate incidents when she is insulted by an unnamed knight who is possibly of otherworldly provenance. Perhaps the clearest key to her original role is found in the triad, which describes her as the triple Guinevere, as three women, each of whom was the spouse of Arthur. Celtic tradition has a strongly developed sense of triplicity, which extends to the aspects of a particular archetype or deity. Guinevere as the flower bride, along with the Lady of the Lake as the foster mother, and the washer at the ford as the Cayley or hag, make up the composite manifestation of the goddess of sovereignty in the Arthurian world. And so it's really interesting to look at both the archetype of the high priestess and the archetype of the empress as being made up of several figures from legend. I feel that one of the aspects of the empress that gets lost, especially in Waite-Smith Tarot, is the equally powerful aspect of the Empress as ruler. I think we see that more clearly in the Tarot de Marseille. And one of the things that Claire Duval says in her guidebook is that the Empress card is one to help us to claim the sovereignty of our inner feminine nature, to know our power of those qualities and how we have the right and the potential to rule from this side, to rule from this aspect. It seems to me that there is an unspoken power and brilliance that would have captivated and captured not only the heart of Arthur, but also the deep inner knowing that he would need to find a queen, a counterpart who was as strong as he needed to be as ruler or a future ruler of the kingdom. Another aspect of this card that we need to explore, regardless of the deck that you are looking at or working with, is the idea that this archetype is a reflection of your potential to grow, to birth something. And I think the story certainly captures that, as Guinevere as the May Queen or the May Day Queen or the Flower Queen, in that she is a reflection of the fertility of the land, the abundance of nature, a reflection of Earth Mother, of Gaia herself. And in that way, doesn't that make her an even stronger archetype than the Emperor, as she so powerfully captures both a goddess archetype and one of powerful ruling counterpart to the emperor? Honestly, I really like this particular character as Empress because it gives us so much to work with. This is not a demure, obedient queen to her king, but a really powerful counterpart to the king who can teach us about empowerment and strength through the journey and the sovereignty of our own divine feminine selves. Much like I was sensing that it was not Nimue who needed Merlin, but rather had a power and a mystery and a magic over Merlin, I sense that this archetype of Guinevere as Empress is one that possesses tremendous power and knowledge and strength that is essential to the success of the Emperor archetype through these legend decks, through these Arthurian decks. So let me know what you think and how you see this. Is it any different from another Empress card? Do the Arthurian tales help you to expand and to capture a story that might be helpful in a reading? Or is it simply discombobulating because there are so many potential characters that make up this archetype of Guinevere? And regardless of your gender, I wonder how this archetype of Guinevere as the Empress can help you to develop and bring awareness to any of these qualities that are coming forth through these stories. I look forward to your comments. Take good care. Namaste.